There I am. Let me do that. And this is On Comics. I am the ever loving Lonnie Webb, welcoming you in. Oh, there. Now I can see. And today we are going back in to discuss Justice for Noel Clarke at Justice for Noel C with John the White, who I will bring in just a moment. Let me check some quick housekeeping things. I think we're all there. I'm going to add John. Boink. There we go. John, do you hear me?
Hello, Lonnie. Oh, it's wonderful to be back on Comics again. Yes, coming through. All good here.
Fantastic. Are you getting enough oxygen?
Just about. Yes, I'll
Just
I'll,
about.
uh, I'll manage.
You'll manage. Okay. Okay. That's
I've
good
got
news.
reserve tanks if we chat too long. To keep me going.
I noticed this morning that the folks over at comicsgate.org were kind enough to share us out
Oh,
to
brilliant,
the
brilliant.
crowd.
I'll
Mhm.
make sure they get a thank you for that.
Yeah. Um, so the looks like the biggest, greatest thing going on in the world today, unless you know of something that I haven't yet heard, um, that really comes down to your new article. Um,
Well, it's having an impact, and it should because it's extremely relevant to Doctor Who fans. You see, when the Guardian went to print for the first time last year with its 20 women accused Noel Clarke article,
mhm.
which was actually 14 women accused Noel Clarke because there were only 14 sets of allegations actually in it. I mean, the first article I did raised 16,000 words worth of problems with Guardian's original reporting. But what happened was that 7 days later, they did another article which was dealing with a separate set of allegations only relating to the world of Doctor Who. And because of how things had played out since the original article had come out, this had got mixed up with John Barrowman, because in 2014 at a Chicago convention, Noel Clarke was on stage with Camille Kaduri, and he told a story about what John Barrowman used to do with little John Barrowman to prank his castmates making Torchwood and Doctor Who. I mean, and as a result of that, things exploded with a cancel culture after John Barrowman as well. And also, Noel Clarke copped a fair amount of blame. I think a lot of people thought that he'd had something to do with that video getting in the press. So another thing this article does is discusses that, and it shows the real origin of that video actually came from Doctor Who fandom, and Noel did not have to be involved. And that's now John Barrowman now realizes that Noel Clarke was not responsible for that, but it was doing a lot of damage to John Barrowman as well. So this second Guardian article, it's about what of Doctor Who. It's got 5 new allegations against Noel in it, but it's also tied up with this video about John Barrowman. So when I was writing the original article, I decided I would approach it in the same way, deal with the first article first, and then in this follow-up, Noel Clarke's adventures in cancellation from time and space, will deal with the Doctor Who and John Barrowman part of it. So that's what this article is. But another thing about the second part of my investigation, Lonnie, was that in the time since the first article came out, and with me announcing that I was going to cover the Doctor Who side of it in the next article, I actually had an inside source came forward to me who wanted to rebut one specific allegation in the second Guardian article, which is to do with Elisa Graham, who was a worker at Comic Con conventions in the UK, and she made allegations against Noel relating to an event in Bournemouth in 2016. So I have an inside source directly refuting one of the Guardian's accusers, which is the first time that's ever happened. And
That's
I think people are starting to clock on to the significance of that, because it's like Skittles. If one falls, the rest will follow.
for sure.
If you
This
could.
is your first one who's come forward and said you can use my name publicly.
Well,
Mm.
no, it's anonymous.
It's anonymous.
I would have preferred, absolutely, I would have preferred for this person to use their name, but it doesn't have to be a genius to work out. There's all sorts of good reasons for them not to.
Yeah.
And from protecting their own position in the industry to becoming subject to online attacks, which would undoubtedly happen.
Right.
But I think perhaps the most important reason for my source to remain anonymous at the moment is to see what Lisa Graham herself is prepared to do. Because we couldn't find any social media for Lisa Graham despite a very thorough search.
She doesn't
So,
exist?
well, I'm not saying she doesn't exist. I'm saying we didn't find her. So
Oh,
she's not jumping up and down where we can spot her. But of course, so many people use so many avatars,
right.
but she could be on social media as anything. But the only thing she said about her allegation is what was printed in the Guardian 17 months ago. So
Well, that's interesting though.
now that
If
that's been seriously challenged, will she break cover? Will people come forward and say, I believe Lisa Graham for whatever reason? And I think perhaps if something like that happened, I know my source is not the only person in that peer group that works within the convention world, which is very unhappy about these Lisa Graham allegations.
but Lisa Graham came
There could
forward.
be more people who come forward.
So Lisa Graham came forward and made herself known
Well,
with the
this is the thing, Lonnie.
accusation.
Once people realise that they can come to me and they can rely on me to protect
Mhm.
their identities, to protect them as sources, who knows what may come at me next?
Well,
But yeah, I mean,
what I wanted to pose is if Lisa Graham came forward and made herself known, why is she so hard to find now?
good question. Good question. And I think, well, why don't we discuss that in proper detail and talk about that
Gotcha.
first, and then I can maybe talk about some of the other stuff which is in this article. And as always, I'm very keen on questions. So if people have got questions, now's a good time to ask them. Let's have a look.
And
Now,
before you get
Lisa,
started, I do want to say, as I almost always do, I am asking for people to come forward with actual evidence of uh, of these accusations, of the allegations being made, in terms of something that is not hearsay, that we can look at and have an objective view of, specifically those police reports that we can't seem to find. I've been asking for them for 3 or 4 weeks. I know John has been looking for them. So if you have something to clarify with that, please jump into the chat, and we'll take it from there.
well,
Or
I
ask
can
us on Twitter.
let me tell you this, Lonnie, because I've actually reported somebody to the police not that long ago,
Oh,
and if
really?
you, well, I won't discuss that matter, but I have
Okay.
recently actually done this myself, so I know full well how it works,
Hmm.
right? And if you make a report, you will get a follow-up letter and a follow-up email
Hmm.
that will have a unique crime reference number. So
Okay.
all anybody who's made a report to police has to do is to show that email with the crime reference number. You don't need no
Yeah.
show any other details. If you
Well,
show that a crime reference number exists, the police report exists. But it's as simple as that.
do they not get
But
a carbon of the statement?
well, it would depend if you went down the station, I think,
Ah, okay.
whether
Don't do
anyone's still
carbons
using
anymore.
carbon these days. What do you think this is? It's for 2020s, not the 1920s. But
Guilty is charged.
I haven't seen carbon used for anything for quite a while. But
I might be
I
a
mean,
Luddite.
I'm sure they've got some down the station somewhere. But yeah, but I mean, obviously a physical report or a report made online, they're both equal. You don't have to go into the police station to make a police report. And it's
Really?
not. And it's well, no, because you've got online reporting.
Ah, see, here in the States, they send a police officer around, and and you do definitely get to see a police officer when that takes place. But yeah, you in the States, you have to be willing to put your name to it. when in terms of a wet signature?
Oh, with a police report, you do have to put your name to it. You
Ah,
can't make a police report as anonymous, you know.
yeah,
So I mean, yeah, I suppose strictly speaking, that could be a factor. But if there was an anonymous accuser who'd made a police report, all they'd have to do is show the police report number, but not their name. Not
yeah.
hard,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
not hard. So I mean, what I'm saying is that it's very easy for anyone who's made a report to police to prove they've made a report to police. Not difficult. The whole criminal justice system depends on crime numbers.
True.
So if you interfaced with it, reporting a crime in any way, then you're going to be on that system. It's as simple
Mhm.
as that, and you're going to be notified that you're on that system. So you will have that information. It's just sat there in your email. All somebody would have to do is open up their email account, go search police, bosh, dosh, there's the email, there's your crime number. So, there's no reason to think that it's a difficult thing in any way to prove that you've made a report to police. But of course, what we're talking about here, especially, is Noel Clarke's the freedom of information request. It proves that he's got no police reports against him, which remains unchallenged by the media, despite over 300. There we are. Yes, despite over 300, but despite close to 300,000 views there. That's like 290,000 views. It's been out a month. As you can see, it was put up August 16th.
Mhm.
No one's challenged this. So until this is challenged, I'm taking it as the default position that nobody went to police, because it's only rumour that anyone went to police. In all my investigations, I haven't found proof positive that anybody went to police. The Guardian put out an article just after the police said that they weren't going to take this any further forward. So at the end of March this year, they put out an article, and in that they said the Guardian understands 5 people went to police, one of which was a man called David Fairbanks, so 4 women. So at the end of March this year, the Guardian was claiming 4 women and 1 man had made a report to police based on their understanding. And
And
understand is one of those really loose, soft words that you can use to wiggle out of things, because it's not the Guardian confirms, it's not the Guardian verifies, it's not the Guardian has proof, it's the Guardian understands.
understands it.
So that can be 5 people on a pinky swear saying, yeah, of course we went honest.
Well, it's one person who definitely made a nuisance of himself, but in doing that, he revealed his issues. Um, so, did he actually report something, or did he only say that?
Well, there's a conflict of realities here, right?
True, true.
I mean, if I live in Guardian reality, then he must have done, because they understand it. If I live in Noel reality, well, how did he? There's no bloody report.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
of the 2 realities, I'm choosing to go with Noel reality until somebody debunks this and proves it wrong. Because why should we believe anything else? And I hope that Noel backs this up more in the near future. I really do.
Mhm.
I think that could happen.
For
And he's
clarity, for clarity, um, for anyone who's coming in new, and I have seen a number of tweets that make me realize there are people who have no clue what we're talking about. Noel released this tweet that's on the screen. He has documentation from the police that proves there is no the documents that the police say there is no investigation uh, concerning him. The allegations that were reported in the Guardian, um, the nonsense in the BBC releases. There's no assessment going against him, which is a business a police business way of saying in the UK that there's no consideration of a case file, and there are no complaints, which means no case files, no criminal IDs, and finally, there are no reports that have been laid against him. So for a man in his what, mid 30s, late 30s.
No, Noel's mid-40s. He's 46,
Ah,
I think.
okay, okay. Um, Noel has been able to stay out of trouble through his teens and his young adulthood, and now he is, uh, in the police's eyes, blameless. Uh, does everybody you know have a clean rap sheet? Um,
Well, I
so
suppose
yeah,
most people I know, I don't particularly ask their rap sheet unless I had a reason to wonder if they had a criminal nature, because I
yeah,
do believe that, if you're convicted and you spend your time, you're supposed to be, oh my God, you're supposed to be redeemed in some way.
true enough.
I remember this idea of a redemptive idea of prison. That was a nice idea when we used to have it.
It was
But I won't digress. But I look, I think obviously most people are law abiding, so most people are going to be like Noel. Most people don't break the law in their
Mhm.
lives in any way which is going to get them any kind of permanent police record. A parking ticket doesn't appear on a search like this.
No,
You
no,
know,
and a parking
um,
ticket is technically an arrest.
yeah,
At least,
it's a different
yeah,
category of law. It's a
but
civil
it's
offence. So this would be about criminal reports.
true. And
So but well, we make a report that someone's committed a crime, we're making a criminal report. I mean, so that's what that is. um there's this is very convincing, Lonnie, because
mhm,
what this is this has been made under what we call the Freedom of Information Act. I know different states in the US have all got their own different versions of this, but the UK one actually works pretty well, where you can subpoena an organization under the Freedom of Information Act. They may have to tell you everything. They have to give you everything that they've got on you, everything, every piece of paper which is in any way connected to you. So that's what this is. So it's a right of access, and Noel Clarke has used it to get his entire police file
mhm.
from birth to the day they sent it to him, and
And
it's
he's
clean, and
and
it's clean.
he has run it by 4 detectives to make sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But if you want to run it the other way around and have Noel as a victim of crime, then yeah, he's been a victim of crime because he
Mhm.
was a victim of Adam Deacon's hate campaign that led to him being convicted for sending death threats against Noel's family. So that would also be a counterbalance, I would think, on any police report. Is that they would consider whether prior animus against Noel had anything to do with any reports they might have received. But it looks like they got no reports. Nobody sent them anything.
That's the way I'm
I mean, it's
interpreting
it's
that.
ridiculous, but there you are. You
Yeah.
know, um,
Yeah,
until the media properly addresses this, it's a massive hole in their whole narrative. But having analysed, let me see, it's actually 19 allegations in total that I've analysed. 14 from the first article, 5 from the second. There's none of these allegations that amount to an easily discernible crime. There's none of these allegations which have been in any sense properly evidenced. You're right, Lonnie. It's not evidence. An accusation in the newspaper is an accusation. It's what comes after. It's what backs it up, and none of this has been backed up.
none of this
And
has been in the court.
I think above all else, at this point, having looked at everything like I have, and written about it, thought about it exhaustively at length, if I've summing this up today, I would say it's the behaviour after the Guardian article came out that is the most glaring sign that there's something wrong with this, because it's so blatantly obvious that the aim of that original set of Guardian allegations was to rubbish Noel's name and to get him cancelled from that Lifetime Achievement BAFTA.
And it
That,
worked.
that
It
that was
worked.
achieved within 24 hours, and everything else which has happened since has been decidedly low energy. I mean, this is not how hurt, damaged, wounded victims behave. If they decide to come forward, they have a passion for justice. And when the police announced in the end of March this year that they weren't going to take this any further, I would have expected a torrent of wailing, gnashing of teeth, saying, "Here we are once again, women being ignored," some kind of narrative like that, some sort of campaign getting together, slamming the police for not taking it further, and so you might have expected to see something like that, especially because there was a big controversy in the UK last year when a young lady was murdered by a policeman, and people were very angry about that, and women protesting were arrested quite roughly over that.
Really?
Yes, so the police are not exactly, especially the Metropolitan Police, are not exactly the most popular police force in the country, not by a long shot. As well as the ongoing increasing crime problems in London in general, so the police are under pressure. You would have thought that another story about police letting women down would have ran, but it did not. All we got was, I think there was about 3 of the accusers or people connected to it made a shitty tweet, and that was it. Just one tweet. Just one tweet. And that's the effort that went into going, how bad was that? Oh, well, let's forget about it now. We don't want to talk about this anymore. That doesn't make sense.
No,
You
no.
know, I would think that if victims were being frustrated by the police not being willing to take an investigation forward, you would hear about it, especially if you're looking for it.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. And to me, I think that above all else, shows where justice goes, where there's always the passion always lies with justice in any cause. And to me here, the passion is very clearly lying with Noel and getting people to understand what happened to Noel. And it's so clearly not on the side of these people who've been making accusations against him, because they've just disappeared in the woodwork and they haven't wanted to address any of this. As I say, beyond about 3 tweets the day that the police said we weren't looking at any further, and nothing else since then. Silence from Osborne and Cale, the Guardian journalists, as well, despite winning Journalists of the Year last year as a result of what of their articles about Noel. But this year, they don't seem to want to talk about it. That strikes me. What's going on? It doesn't ring true. And we know that there's so much information that we could be pretty sure Noel Clarke would love to tell everybody, but it's bound up with his ongoing legal action against the Guardian. So we know that we can't get the full side of what he would want to say. But I remain convinced that when we can get that full story, it's going to be devastating. It's going to absolutely be devastating.
Well, I should think that if there's actual evidence out there, it would be something that we could put our eyes on. And it sure is difficult to find the
Well, unfortunately, it's the problem with the adversarial judicial system that we've just got to let that play out, and Noel has to protect his interests in that case. So,
totally true. We don't want Noel to open his.
But on the good news side, as fans, we've now got so much better picture than we did at the start of this summer.
Yes.
At least we can actually understand what we're looking at. At least we can understand what the problems are, what the questions are. And we could clearly see that some of these stories are a lot weaker than others, and even the ones that seem the strongest have got huge problems with them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I think about talking through the detail that I've put out, I mean, just to start at the beginning of the first article and talk through everything which is in it all the way to the end of the second, we'd be here 5 hours or more just to go through that information. So I mean, obviously people need to look back at previous streams that I've done, because we can't keep doing that.
We have previous videos in the description, as well as all of the articles that John has done. And I refer you also to the other YouTubers the official TARDIS zone, and Lord Gobby Guy, as well as Dan
Well,
Facebook.
assuming we speak for a couple of hours tonight, Lonnie, it's around about 15 hours of me talking about this topic is now
Yeah,
online. So,
at
well, it
least.
adds up quick. It adds up quick. So people aren't short of content to find and listen to. It's continuing our efforts to get people to look at it.
Hmm.
I saw a response that you made to somebody on Twitter today, and they was asking why there were so many people suddenly randomly talking about Noel Clarke. And you linked this stream on there. Justice for Noel Clarke made a tweet on there as well. We popped the article on there, but
What?
that's the sort of thing. That's the sort of thing that we see happening. Is that this is starting to spread, and people aren't necessarily understanding where it's coming from, but they're hearing talk about Noel Clarke. They're hearing
Yeah,
that people are starting to look again, and that can only grow. That can only grow. The number of people willing to actually do at least hear the other side of the story is only going to increase. I think we've done a good thing. We've done a good thing for Noel. We've done a good thing for fandom, and it's on the up from here.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. I haven't seen anything that makes me think that there's another side with another shoe to drop.
Well, I mean, let's think about that for a moment. I mean, I had to make a decision when I first started to write these articles. Am I going to take the risk of writing these articles? Because what if something unforeseen happens and it ends up making things worse? Because I've had that problem with the situation before where I've talked about something and accidentally made it worse. I won't give the
Oh
specifics.
no.
It was a long time ago. But, we all make mistakes now and again.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I was a bit concerned about that, Lonnie. If I poke these stories, is something nastier going to drop out woodwork? But I decided that I just couldn't afford to think like that. Because I don't know if there is anything nasty to drop that woodwork. And if there was anything nasty, why the hell didn't it drop already? So if there are people, if we get in a position where the Guardian's reputation is in tatters, their reporting is a topic of ridicule, and it's commonly accepted that they did a horrible hit job on Noel Clarke, and then a whole bunch of more people start coming up with work with other accusations that have never been made before. I don't think that's going to be awfully credible. The
I would
time
be
the
suspicious
time
of
to
it.
speak up was last year.
Yeah.
And I don't think there could be anybody with anything to say who has an excuse for not knowing that. Not when you had a national newspaper actively asking for people to come forward, not when it was a national news story being talked about by every newspaper. Why would you not have come forward then? So, I had to be realistic about it. And so far, none of those bad things have happened. And I hope they don't. Of course I do, because I don't want to be responsible for making anything worse. But we've got to be better off having a better picture of the situation. And I think, on the whole, I think that I did take that risk upon myself because nobody else was telling me to do this, So, I have to put my hand up for that. But so far it's working out. And I expect it. I expect it to do so because I really think that if there was nasty stuff, we'd have heard about it. I mean,
Yeah.
when the original Guardian article came out, I did read it at the time. I do remember seeing this bit about there being 6 women whose stories weren't being talked about, and I assumed at the time, thinking there's got to be more to this.
Hmm.
About they must be really bad ones then. If they're allegations which are too severe for the Guardian to want to risk putting into print, and it's better if they go get reported to the police first, something like that. That's why would you have these? Because it looks so bad, doesn't it? 6 women whose stories are so terrible they're not even being told. But it could be the other way around. It could be the stories were so crap the Guardian couldn't risk publishing them.
Uh,
Or it could be that they might be people whose credibility was damaged in some way because of some other connection to Noel Clarke they might have.
that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, there are possibilities.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm not saying I know that any one of those is right. That's the thing with possibilities. You're supposed to entertain them without believing them. so that you have a range of options. This could be this, could be this, could be this, and you wait for evidence. I mean, that's the best way to do things. But I think that summarizes that situation pretty well anyway. But yeah, I did take that risk, but I think it's been justified so far. And if it turns out that that's wrong, that will be on me. So I'll have to take that on the shoulders.
So John has previously boiled down the situation with the Guardian article and examined the accusations made in the article extensively. So that article is in the description and in the previous videos. If you have any questions about that, I think that you could fire them at John or even me, and I'd get them to John.
Sure thing, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
always happy to answer any questions that people might have. After all, gang, it's always possible. I mean, you might have to get up early in the morning, I'll grant you that. But it's always possible that you might see something or think something that I have not. So, sometimes questions can be good from, the point of view of opening up new avenues on something. So,
Right.
I'm very much open to having my work questioned. Because it's all about questions. That's the whole point of the exercise, is to raise the questions that need to be looked into.
I was not the first to reverse my opinion on the accusations against Noel Clarke, but after reading the first article that John had done, I totally flipped. I couldn't accept the accusations that were put forward on the seemingly flimsy accusations. And regarding the requests that I have made in social media, I haven't had a single taker for a piece of evidence, the case number, as you say. Nothing has come my way in terms of an actual piece of observable evidence in contrary to our new position on Noel Clarke. And
Well, what I can tell you about that is that Justice for North Sea has had some interesting follows. No
I
names, no
saw that.
background.
I won't show, but
There's certainly some media eyes are starting to want to keep a close eye on what Justice for North Sea is saying. There's the viewing figures for the articles themselves. They tell their own story. Thousands of people have been reading these articles, so the story is getting out there. And I think we're at the point where we're in the pipeline, the same pipeline that I've travelled down many successful causes, and it goes like this: first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
Of course.
That's how it goes, So we are. I think the first we're in stage one. The first sign that we're in stage two will be if anything starts to appear in the media to attack us.
I think we're already rent free in some people's heads.
We're definitely rent free in some parts of fandom's heads. Permanent traumatic scarring, I think, for some of the poor darlings. But I can't help them with that. They've got to help themselves.
That is a mental condition.
Well,
I forgot
we
to
all have a
introduce.
mental condition one way or another, but you've got to be willing to help yourself.
I forgot to introduce myself as the director of chaos. But I'm pleased with what you have accomplished with a very, very dedicated effort journalistically. I don't see that in newspapers right now at all. So I'm glad to see that you have done it. The numbers tell me that there are 10,000 or more people probably in the UK that are interested in hearing this story. So journalists who are not picking up what you have already done and doing their own fact checking, they're kissing away an opportunity for free readers.
Well, the interest is definitely there, and that's interest that has been generated just from a few tweets from a few fans, and a couple of a couple of articles on WordPress, So if fans can do that, the media
Mhm.
doesn't have any excuse. And of course, the media's got far better resources than I have, So yeah, I mean, the focus of the Justice for Noel Clarke campaign continues to be to get a response from the media, and it will happen. It will happen. I'm absolutely sure of that. But even if they continue to maintain radio silence, pretending that we don't exist, while they're definitely looking at us, really, the good that we're doing for Noel Clarke is makes it all worthwhile anyway. And I mean, you mentioned a little while back, that you changed your mind about Noel.
I did.
And I think that as Doctor Who fans, Noel Clarke fans, I think we need to be honest about what happened. I think we need to be honest that most of us actually assumed that there was something pretty bad going on here, and there must be something to it. Well, I mean, for the exact proportion of fans that then took that as license to go and attack Noel. I mean, I know you're not that kind of guy.
No.
You wouldn't have done that, but many hundreds, possibly thousands, did. Because it was pylon time. I wasn't one of those people, but I was also not automatically on his side either. I wanted to see what came out of it all. I wanted to see what the police made of it. It wasn't until March this year that I started to even think about thinking again. And it was only in July this year, the start of July, that I decided, okay, I'm going to seriously look into this. So, I would be, if I tried to pretend in any way that I'd responded any better or any differently to anybody else, I think I'd be a hypocrite. I'm not willing to do that. Instead, I would rather say it's okay to change your mind. It's just a choice. And even if you got Noel really wrong, and even if you thought you were justified to go and attack Noel last year, but now you're coming across this information and it's making you think, God, maybe I was a bit of a dick, or some variant of that. The good news is that doesn't mean there isn't anything you can do about it. And I think a message for fans, especially, is to recognise that Noel has suffered a lot as a human being. He's traumatized. He has post-traumatic stress disorder. That's not a joke.
Right.
That's a real problem. And he was also pushed to the edge of suicide in the middle of all this. And his opinion of fans, when he saw hundreds of fans attacking him without even wanting to hear his side of it, or whatever, it hurt him a lot. In the same way, he was quite hurt by the BBC when we said, just off the back of the article, they just said, we'll never work with him again. I know he was, he said he was hurt by that. So, we have to think as fans, okay, if we now changed our mind about Noel, if we think maybe he isn't this bad guy we thought he was, well, where does that put him in terms of his role as Doctor Who talent? Do we want to see him in the show again? Do we want to see him back on Big Finish? Do we want to see him able to give a DVD commentary on a Blu-ray or something? Because or do you want to see Noel involved in any way again with any kind of BBC licensed Doctor Who product in any format, in any form? And do we want to see him back in the convention circuits? Well, this is where what we do really can make a difference, because we can. Firstly, I think the most simple thing to do is just go find any tweet of Noel, anything he tweeted at all. It doesn't matter what, and just go say on it, "Hey Noel, I'm sorry, I really got you wrong last year. I've changed my mind now, and I've decided, I'm supporting you." But every tweet like that, I know will make a difference to Noel Clarke. So I recommend you go and do it. It's very easy, and it's a very simple and a very human thing to do. But also, these convention organisers, people who put on Doctor Who events, they need to hear how you feel. So write letters in Tell them you're not happy that Noel's been excluded this year from such and such an event. Tell them that you feel that, you know, it's unfair and unjust what's happened to him, and that, you know, we need to think again, and, you know, to say how you feel. You know, every effort that you make counts, because it shifts that consensus trance somewhere. And, you know, I think especially talking about the Doctor Who convention world brings us back to this particularly dramatic inside source, which come forward from the second article about Doctor Who. So shall we get into looking at that now? How do you feel?
I think we should. I have it up on the screen. Where would you like to go?
Okay, well, you've got the article up, so come down a bit. You can scroll down to about 1/3 from the bottom, I would think.
Oh, 1/3 from the bottom?
Yeah, so give it a good chunk. We're going to skip down this lot. There's John Barrowman. No, okay, stop, back up, stop, back up. Okay, up, keep, there we go. Next one up, where we start, this is where we see it say Lisa Graham for the first time. No, up a bit more, up a bit more. Stop. There we go. No, we've just missed it. We've gone too far up slightly. Down a little bit more. There we go. So where it says Lisa Graham, 2016 Bournemouth Film and Comic Con. Yeah. So I mean, let's do my preamble. Lisa Graham is the last accuser to have her story featured in The Guardian, and from the point of view of Doctor Who fandom, she's unique, because she's not someone involved in TV or movie production in front of or behind the camera, but a science fiction fan who works at fan conventions. As such, I've taken an especially robust approach to finding out all I could to try to assess her allegations, and efforts to do so have taken the bulk of research efforts for this article, which is true. I put a lot of resources into this.
So she's one of us.
That's the point. That's why I felt it was even more important to do everything I could to try and find out everything relating to this, you know, because I didn't know if she talked about it on social media or if she'd expanded on what she said in The Guardian. But as it happened, you know, I found no evidence for that. So I felt it was important, because what was said in The Guardian is all there is. I put this in verbatim. So this is exactly what they've said. So we're going to assess this on what they've said. So Clarke also stands accused of behaving inappropriately in an external function related to his role in Doctor Who. In May 2016, Lisa Graham volunteered at Bournemouth Film and Comic Con, held at the Bournemouth International Centre. She was assigned to help Clarke sign autographs and take photographs of paying fans. At this event, Graham alleges that Clarke sexually harassed her and touched her inappropriately under the table they were both sitting at. She would literally lean in and grab the outside of my thigh, Graham recalled. On one occasion, she said, Clarke attempted to touch her inner thigh. It started out on the knee, she said, but there was a point where he tried to lean towards my inner thigh, and I physically moved my chair to get away. When women walked past the stand, Graham said, Clarke would rate them out of 10 in terms of sexual attractiveness and make derogatory and disrespectful comments. She also alleged that Clarke repeatedly asked her to have sex with him. Because they were both in public, Graham said she did not feel physically threatened by Clarke. However, she found his comments to be disgusting. At the end of the day, they were packing away. Graham mentioned the harassment to her supervisor. The supervisor laughed away her remarks, Graham recalled, and did not appear to take it seriously. Clarke's lawyer said he'd never touched anyone inappropriately or in a sexual way, and pointed out the convention was a public event where there were always people present. They said Clarke had no specific recollections of discussions with Graham, but wholly denied he would have conducted himself in the way she alleged. So there we are. That's the allegation. And in terms of his second Guardian article, I would say that's the most detailed allegation.
That is.
That's the most detailed. They put the most effort into trying to make this as believable as possible.
When I read this, I initially thought, well, how dare he do this to one of us? I mean, can you imagine if I were sitting next to Jenna Coleman and she were running her hand up and down my leg? I would be so offended. But seriously.
Putting that tongue back in your feet, you know.
But for
it
him,
wouldn't make it okay though. Would
it would no. If he were doing this to a fan, that's a volunteer. Also, that's that's pretty startling for somebody who relies
It's
on,
absolutely shocking. It's
yeah,
shocking.
the convention scene is the lifeblood of some of these veteran actors. And but then the supervisor laughed away the remarks. Well, we live in a different HR world. That even with volunteers.
I'm going to get to that. Don't you
Okay,
worry, Lonnie. I'm going to
okay,
get to that. Well, I
I,
mean, let's see the next little bit here. I just summarised what's been said.
okay,
I just bullet point it.
got
May
it.
2016, Bournemouth Film and Comic Con. Assigned to assist Noel sign autographs and take photographs with paying fans. Played some form of footsie leg squeezing with her under the table. Would discuss women walking past in terms of sexual attractiveness. Asked repeatedly to have sex by Noel Clarke. Tried to report to supervisor. Report was brushed off. Noel Clarke denies all claims. That's what we've got to deal with here. Those are the different elements of it. So the first thing to observe, I'll carry on reading what I said because it's good words. If the nature of his allegations is entirely he said, there are no corroborating statements. There's nobody to back anybody. There's nobody quoted in any form to back any of this up. And the supervisor, who allegedly refused to take her report seriously, is neither named nor approached for comment. Now that stuck out to me. You've got a supervisor who's ignoring sexual harassment and abuse of workers under their direct responsibility, and you're not going to put that person's name in the newspaper. Why not?
That's a whole story by itself. A
Why
good
not?
reporter's going to go after it.
Could it be because such a person could then be approached and then deny that it ever happened?
Could
But
be.
if you don't name them,
You're insulated. It's plot armor.
it's pretty good plot armor. But most importantly, it's a glaring omission in the reporting.
Hmm.
It's right there, and it's something that should be followed up, but it's not.
Yeah, I would, being that reporter, I would have done the footwork on that and had that set aside for when my editor says, "What do you have for a follow-up?" I can point to my notepad and say, "It's right here."
Well, you could even say the Guardian approached Mrs. So and so or Mr. So and so, whoever it is, and they
Mhm.
declined to comment. You could even put that.
Yep. And again, that by itself is a story.
Because yeah, totally a story. It's a scandal within fandom in itself, but the
Yeah,
Guardian wants to protect this person apparently.
interesting.
Okay, don't quite get that. And then it's established fact that Lisa Graham did not take her complaint to police because no one took their complaint to the police. So unless Lisa Graham could prove differently, she didn't say anything to police. With another accusation, I might have left my comment here, but because this involved fandom more than it does TV production, I decided I needed to take it further. Thanks to one young fan's very diligent blog, I was able to establish exactly how this session was set up that day. Now, okay, that's displaying differently for you than it does for me.
Oh,
If you click into that Twitter link,
this
Ronnie,
one here.
right there, yes, right there, it should take us to Justice for Noel C. Okay,
Okay.
do, and then if you can click into that picture to enlarge it.
I have a
That's the
nice.
there
There
we are.
we
That's it. Okay. So basically, there's this fan, bless him, and he must have paid a fortune because he went to everybody.
go.
Yes. So good for him. Great. Yeah. But as you can see, here he is in the left-hand side. His picture with Noel Clarke, and we've got this. As is described here, which is another section from the article, shows a line of 4-foot partition sections, pop, 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 connected to make a long continuous wall, against which multiple talent are allocated a narrow space, crammed in with a continuous table in front of them, and promotional pictures with their names on behind them, so fans know where to come to get stuff signed and pictures taken. That's what's being shown here. You can see where Noel is. You can see where Howard Charles is to his left, the
Yep.
picture to his left. And then with Jenna Redgrave here, you can see just past the top of her head, you can see Noel's picture again. Then you can see it was Kai Owens, and then it was her. So lineup was Howard Charles, Noel Clarke, Kai Owens, Gemma Redgrave.
Okay.
And you can see that you've got so many people just milling around in front of these tables constantly. You know, it's like a jumble sale. There's so many people, and the talent are all squeezed up behind their tables. So no one's more than 3 foot away from anybody else. But we're expected to believe that Noel Clarke was sleazing on this girl all the way through this event, and nobody picked up anything weird about any of it. You
It,
can
it,
believe it if you want to believe it, but that's what we're actually being asked to believe. And I think it's very important to put all of these claims in context, because everything that this Lisa Graham says happened there. That's her story.
just looking at this from these pictures, using my eyes, I can't put my thumb in between any two people here. So anything going on, everybody
It's
is
chair
seeing.
to chair, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's chair to chair.
this
You
is
know,
tighter than long late.
yeah, more than likely, more than likely.
Yeah.
But you know, if you've just had the words in the Guardian to go on, you might imagine that scene quite differently. I think when I originally read it, I imagined a table sat on its own with some space and more
Mhm.
tables further away. I didn't imagine something like this. So you know, it doesn't disprove what she says,
No.
it does it does raise significant questions over whether it's credible. That's the wrong article. That's the first one.
What? Oh,
Yeah, that's Can There Be Justice for Noel Clarke? That's the wrong article.
how did I do that?
I don't know, but it was
Apologize.
jolly clever.
Apologize. I have a fantastic sleight of
That's still the
hand.
wrong. Yeah,
You
there we
know,
go. There we go.
it's a
Yeah,
true gift.
we're going to get better. We're going to do better if we talk about. Okay, up. I'll do. Yes, there we were. Just where it comes in now, so you can drop down a little bit beyond that. And there we are. That's the section I just went through describing how it's
Yes,
set up.
as
So
you can see,
regarding
quite
Howard Charles and Kai Owens, neither man has ever made a negative comment about Noel Clarke. The two guys sat either side of him at that event.
I couldn't imagine that they would. I
Uh,
mean, there wouldn't be
both of
anything to
them,
see.
and their respective convention helpers, so 4 people, 2 on either side, would
Mhm.
be potential witnesses to what Lisa Graham alleges about Noel Clarke. Wandering hands under the table, repeated requests for sex, rating passive women out of 10. Could none of these 4 people closely flanking Noel Clarke that day have picked up on any of it? There is nothing available to suggest that any of them would confirm any of Lisa Graham's story.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a reasonable statement to make. You know, the other thing that actually occurred to me that maybe I could have added into that paragraph is that she also says that Noel was going for her inner thigh and she had to pull her chair back.
Yep.
I mean, you would think that body language or all that would strike people either side as weird.
Yeah.
Someone suddenly jumps their chair back, and if Noel Clarke's doing this stuff to her, I mean, I suppose she could have a fake smile plastered on all day, but I think that her underlying body language would not show somebody who was happy and enjoying what they do. So none of this seemed to have been remarked upon by anybody else. Not been reported in the Guardian. So let's come down a bit more now here. So yes, I've talked about me looking for her on social media. But basically, we looked everywhere. I got other people to help me look. We couldn't find anything that seemed to belong to Lisa Graham, any kind of online presence. But as well as asking on social media, I also asked my own Doctor Who contacts, do you know anything about this woman, Lucy Graham? And do you know anything about this supervisor? Because those were the 2 questions I wanted to get more answers to.
Mhm.
And then that's where something quite dramatic happened. Because I was contacted by a bona fide inside source. Dun, 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 but well, look, it changes everything. I mean,
Doesn't it?
because I mean, it really puts some pepper up this article. I can tell you that. So let's talk about my inside source. Who are they? Tough. You're not going to find out.
Well, this
I
is,
mean,
of course, the
but
inside,
I take protecting my sources very seriously, and that includes
and you
protecting them
should.
from you, as well as everybody else, Lonnie.
Please.
Because I mean, well, even for good reasons, people can want to push a source to do what they're not actually comfortable with. Like I want to interview you more. I want to get your voice out there more. Well, maybe that's not what we want. So
Right.
it runs all. Protecting sources runs every single way, and I'm very, very much a bastard about it. So there's not much chance of getting me to tell you anything more than what I'm put on the paper here. But I put plenty on the paper here. So
Yes, you did.
let's see what it says. I can confirm my source will remain anonymous with regard to this article. I have independent verification they are who they say they are and do the job they say they do. The following information was relayed to me by voice call, not email or private message. And I think that's relevant, Lonnie, because I think, you can be fed a load of text by anybody.
But you've got
But
an actual
if
voice.
you're interviewing somebody on a phone call,
Mhm.
I mean, no, it's not perfect, but at least you've got a sense that you're talking to somebody around about the right age and the right gender. So you're in a ballpark that you are actually talking to a real human being with information that matters. So I thought it was important to mention that. I asked my source probing questions to establish the full context as widely as possible. I have no reason not to consider my source verified and credible. The following will have any detail that might risk identification removed, but otherwise will give an overall picture of what my source has to say. None of the following is my own perspective or characterization, but me relaying information passed on to me in a way that communicates accurately while protecting their identity. Okay, so preamble done, but I hope that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
I know. So this is the way I've written this: is to each paragraph starts my source as to each sentence within the paragraph, because I don't want this misquoted. So this guarantees that it's very difficult to misquote how I've presented this. My source is not impressed with Lisa Graham at all. They consider what she has done to be very poor behaviour. My source and my source's peers, which means other people working in the same kind of line, do not believe Lisa Graham. My sources worked at the same events as Lisa Graham many times. I will not confirm or deny if my source worked the same Bournemouth 2016 event. Very simply because if I did that, I'd be putting him in one group or another, wouldn't I? And that would make
Yes, you would.
identifying them easier. My source says that themselves and their peer group responded with derision when they saw Lisa Graham's allegations in the Guardian article last year. They say Lisa Graham has never said a peep of any of this to anyone until she spoke to the Guardian, and just don't believe that's credible. That's a gap of 5 years, Lonnie. They
That's
all
pretty
watch.
long.
They all watch each other's backs. Not that they have to, because convention workers having to fight off talent's wandering hands is basically unheard of. But if anyone was treated like that, everyone would support them. My source's peer group also contains multiple individuals who have also assisted Noel Clarke at conventions. And they say it's ridiculous. Everyone knows Noel is one of the good ones, never mistreated anyone, always really nice to work with, not up himself, and they just don't believe Noel behaved this way. My source echoes the same points I had uncovered about the setup for these signing events, what a complete conveyor belt it is, and how it's just too incredible to think Noel Clarke could get away with sleazing on someone like this with hundreds of people passing right in front of him all day long and other people crammed left and right of him. My source says occurrences of talent mistreating convention workers are very, very rare. Without imparting any gossip about any individual, my source confirmed it almost never happens. If it did, word would spread like wildfire and no one would try to cover it up. And but all the time my source has been working in this area, they do not know anyone with a negative story to tell about Noel Clarke until Lisa Graham popped up in The Guardian talking about something she'd completely kept to herself for 5 years.
Mm.
My source says Lisa Graham is lying.
Did your source give you any indication of were there other problems with Lisa Graham? With this out of the way, would they have other issues with Lisa Graham?
I'd have to say no on that. That's
Okay.
not something. That's not something that we discussed.
Okay.
I couldn't. I couldn't really say. I think there definitely seems to be a problem with co-workers of Lisa Graham, because that's who we're talking about here,
Hmm.
and how she behaved going to the Guardian last year, and they don't believe her because she didn't say anything about it for 5 years. I mean, look, for example, how likely is it that you could be treated like crap by a supervisor, brushed off as a stupid little girl, while you've been fighting off this bloke trying to get his hand up you in a fire all afternoon, and you wouldn't say anything to anybody that you work with?
Not in my circles.
I can't see it happening. I can't see that happening at all. I think the opposite would have happened. I think that would have completely blown up. And if it didn't blow up then, it should have been blown up now, and that's another reason to question strongly: why did the Guardian not put that supervisor's identity in their reporting? It makes no sense. Not if you're serious about blowing the lid on not only Noel Clarke's behaviour at family conventions, but family conventions being run by people who are going to cover up sexual harassment and potentially sexual assault. No way. No way. So, but then I think if you consider that that's what's been happening here, I mean, that's effectively what Lisa Graham's story says about the people who ran that convention. I won't know. There's only a couple of companies, by the way, who do these conventions in the UK, for most of them. There are some independents, but the lion's share of them. So this was run by a big company that also does multiple other events.
Hmm.
I won't name them because I'm not actually looking to put that company on the hook, because after all, there's only a claim in the Guardian that their supervisor behaved that way. There's no evidence the supervisor behaved that way.
If there's not,
There's only a claim.
yeah, if there's no documentation floated, it didn't happen.
Well, I mean, that always used to be the case when I worked in healthcare. If it ain't written down, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you that verifying what happens physically, making reports. I mean, businesses depend on that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And it would be the same for this organization. But what the source was also saying, that basically it's just not the case that conventional workers are getting felt up by TV actors all the time. It's just not heard of, because you're right. Something you said earlier. I mean, it is a gravy train. It is reliable, dependable money and an excuse to travel around the place and meet lots of people who think you're great. So of course actors love conventions. Not all of them. Some of them don't do them, but most part they do love them. And especially when you're a TV actor, it's like a pension, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's absolutely a pension. Where else are you going to find some young man who's going to pay you 25 quid for an autograph or something for a TV show that you made 40 years ago?
Eh,
I mean, you'd be crazy to
yeah.
to sour that. And any actor, any talent that misbehaved, maybe blacklisted off the circuit, whether it became a scandal in the press or not. Supervisors got no motive to cover that up. They're not there to cover talents' arses if they can't respect the organisation. I mean, because there's always somebody else who can give autographs and a signature. There's always somebody else can go on that seat. If someone's more trouble than they're worth to deal with, they're booted. This story doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
Clark isn't the
even
kind of,
even in 2016, it didn't make sense.
no.
But a supervisor would do that, and it makes, and if a supervisor did do that, it makes even less sense that they've been protected by the Guardian's reporting.
Yeah.
So, all in all, um, what do you think of Lisa Graham's credibility? What's your assessment
I
on it? Because I mean, I'm biased. I wrote the thing. What do you make of it?
I strongly don't want to believe that Lisa Graham is making an attention grab. Um, in in situations that I have been in, if I had a gopher or a runner attached to somebody and they turned to me and said, "Hey, this has happened. I want to know what to do." My response would be to yank them out of there, put them on another spot, and put somebody else there. Uh, somebody burly, smelly, and unpleasant that could counter any handsy problems. But there, every organization I have been a part of or volunteered for, there's uh, a system of reporting that you do. And if there's no evidence of reporting, I have a hard time seeing that this is not an attention grab.
Well, it's like every other allegation the Guardian printed. None of them are enough to stand up as credible and convincing on their own. You only have to ask a few simple questions and they start to
Yeah.
unravel very quickly. And what I would say is, I agree with you in that I would rather not think that this was
Lisa
a
Graham
result
is
of.
one of us.
We'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Would like to think so, but there is that temptation to get your name in print. There's
Mm,
that factor to it.
mm.
But if she's telling the truth, and if in some way she listens to this, sometime in the future, what I would say to her is that if she wants to be taken seriously, if she wants the story to be taken as credible, she's got to give a lot more to firm this up. And she's got to
Yeah.
name that
Yeah.
supervisor, and she's got to name, and she's got to find some people who were there, who will back up that it happened.
If
Because
Lisa,
without it, and with her obviously not having gone to the police,
yeah,
this is just not something that should be allowed to dictate the future of a man's whole life. It's just not.
if Lisa Graham were in the chat, I would say you got this in the Guardian. You tried to make this a part of history. You're responsible for some additional details, and I want to hear them. And I will back you up 100% uh, against Noel if there's documentation.
If the evidence was there,
Yeah.
and if I had to come to the conclusion that Noel had been a bad man and done bad things, then I would join you, Lonnie. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not somebody who, even if I support Noel now, if I find out that he's a monster in the future, then I'm afraid I would have to go with my conscience. But at
I
the
may,
moment, I don't feel at risk that's going to happen.
yeah, I
Uh,
might be a carbon paper Luddite, but I I have to say that that's an allegation that needs to come off the table.
Uh, Lonnie, I've just popped a link to you in the private chat. Is there a
Ah,
chance we could look at this one? It's
sure.
another tweet from Justice for Noel C that I made yesterday. It's a bit of a tangent, but I think it's worth talking about.
Okay, let me go get that. While I'm doing that, if anyone in the chat has a question, please pop it in the chat so we can.
You see
Uh,
it okay? A link in the private chat there.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
I got
okay.
that. And I will. I have to move some things around on my screen. I've got garbage everywhere now. If you would in the chat, please drop any questions you can come up with, and we would like
Well,
to.
we've got Cam and we've got Darren M. Hi to both of you. Yeah. So yes, I did say you say hello earlier on, Darren. Yeah, you'll be lurking and jumping when you can. Fair enough. And Cam's listening while they travel. So cool. Well, to you listening because we're ready. Yeah. This book, which we covered yesterday in a tweet from Justice for Noel C. This PDF was sent to me. And if you click into those pictures a little bit, just to open them up,
Okay.
the cover of it is right there. How to destroy a man now.
Wow.
a handbook. And this is a proper book. It's got an ISBN. It's got a copy of the Library of Congress and all that jazz. And it's been circulating since 2018. And if you click the next one over, with your little right arrow there, and look at the next picture, this is the contents. And it deals with destroying a man now, fundamental principles, destroying a man now, online method, destroying a man now, at work method, and finishing chapter 4, why these destroy a man now methods work. And it's right there, black and white. Crafting allegations, leveraging media, leveraging authority. Now, as it happens, that's as much as we decided to link out of this book, because the rest of it is just so damn toxic. Half of it is basically outlining criminal methods, and these are crimes. You set out to destroy people with false allegations, you're a criminal. It's as simple as that. So this is as much a criminal guidebook as the anarchist cookbook, you know, and just about as explosive. I mean, this shows you the kind of material which has been circulating for at least 4 years. It's not the only book like it as well. And I have seen this talked about by some people in the Johnny Depp circles, you know, because it's the same situation, you know. In fact, the Amber Heard team could be more almost visibly observed following the online method in this book, in how they're approaching, in some of the ways they're approaching things, leveraging media, social media especially. But, you know, you could apply this just as well to everything that happened to Noel. It doesn't mean that is what happened. It doesn't mean that all these women accusing Noel all read this book. But what I'm looking to demonstrate here is that the mindset exists and the information to do it exists. So the chances that at least some of these people have tapped into some of this stuff also exists. And, you know, it's the same as protesters these days. I mean, you know, we call them the lefties here in Britain. You know, so we're usually some other adjective attached to the end of that, you know, rhymes with anchors, you know, or something like you can work that out, you know, but they all show up these days. They're all dressed in black head to foot. They've all got their face covered. They've all got their combat knuckle dusters on. They've got their umbrellas, you know, and you know, and their bicycles, you know. And the reason they all look the same is they're all being told this is how you protest, and they're getting that information online. So that's how influential underground information can be, you know. And I mean, I'm not saying this book is underground. You haven't got to go deep on the dark web to find it. It's on Amazon. So, you know, I mean, it's not that you can't find it, but I am amazed that it's in public, because this is a criminal manual and there's no other way of describing it. I mean, I have said this book is evil because I think a book which sets out to destroy other human beings based on lies and dark emotion. I mean, how else are you supposed to define a book like that? It is evil. But you know, it speaks to. It's one more way in which we can see, but it's not impossible to think that what happened to Noel was an orchestrated hit job. Because, you know, there's people out there who are spending their time thinking about orchestrating hit jobs to destroy a man now. So, I mean, what do you make of that? Did you see this yesterday? I mean, it's pretty shocking, isn't it?
I did. I thumbed through it through the conversation, and I didn't yet get into the pages of the book. I think I should actually read it before I make a.
Oh yes, I chucked you one from the back door, didn't I? Yes. So you know, wow, you got a future video looking into it. You know,
I actually had couple or three copies show up.
I'm
But
just briefly going to. Cam's just piped up into the chat there. No questions, thanks. Well, if you insist, Cam, if you've got one, I'll answer it. Find it hard to believe no evidence has ever been turned up if Noel is such a monster. Well, it does beg a belief, doesn't it? You know, apparently 20 years of sexual predation, but there's not a single woman prepared to say they've had sex with him.
I'm not touching that one.
You know, without a doubt, the worst sexual predator in the history of the movie industry, and that's no form of compliment. You know, I mean, you know, how bad at it do you have to be? I agree. And he should sue these so-called journalists for slander libel. That is exactly what he is doing. But it's also why it's still a long road, unfortunately. But I can assure you, the Guardian and its journalists are being sued. The action started at the end of April this year, so you know it's heading past the 4-month point now. Cases like that normally take 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So you know, we're not likely to see anything happen this year or next year, unfortunately. But I think the most important thing is that action continues, because if it continues, Noel will win.
I think that just again, I point back to the tweet going into the show today. If we can't get people to come forward and talk about the accusations at all, there's no there. And shame on the Guardian for having been a part of this campaign. They could have been head and shoulders above the tabloid news circuit.
Well, you know, I mean, that's the thing with broadsheets, as they like to call themselves. We print on bigger paper. You know, we're better than you. No, but they can be more sneaky about how they couch their language. You know, they don't speak in the same language as the Sun, but you know, ethically, moralistically, better than do me a favor.
I'm not getting that vibe anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I ever got that vibe.
Once upon a time, maybe we might have believed it, but no. I mean, respect for the media has just declined so much, and they've done it to them. They've done it to themselves, Nonny. They've done it to themselves. They always do it to themselves, but especially in the British press, you know, it became so tribal over Brexit. But you know, but when you can see newspapers that are supposed to be respectable obviously visibly telling blatant lies because they're totally for one side and not the other, it destroys the public's respect for the media.
I gave up my newspapers and I'm actually now reading the Epic Times. Pardon me, the Epic Times. It's
the Epoch Times. Yeah, yes, I've seen some of their stuff.
You know, they could use an English speaking editor sometimes, but
it wouldn't be a proper newspaper if it didn't need an English speaking editor sometimes.
I really am impressed with Epoch Times journalism, but
there are people out there making serious efforts, but you know, they're not the most popular and they're not the best funded, because unfortunately truth is rarely the most popular commodity on the marketplace of ideas. That's an old philosophical conundrum that we just can't get away from as a species, because we love a good rumor, we love a good story, and you know, it takes a certain discipline to hold back. And well, you know, discipline and the current generation especially, they don't go together. So and you know, I mean, yes, everything that happened to Noel is in some way bound up with changes in wider society. You know, in it's the same where, you know, it's how he was a bit of a blokey bloke, you know, and how he went about his business. You know, he wasn't completely aloof, and you know, he let his hair down with his co-workers, and maybe that's come back to bite him, sort of thing. So you know, I've said before that I think Noel's biggest crime was not changing with society fast enough. As you know, especially as the Me Too stuff happened, you know, and carrying on being a bit blokey longer than he should.
Yeah.
And you know, but it, it's like I think as we could put it this way, you know, as men, certainly as men of a certain age, as I think we both are, you know, we're out
I
of
am
our
of a
we're
certain
out of our
age.
40s, yeah, you know. We've been around the block a bit, and we've seen that society does change as time goes on, and you do need to move
Does.
with it a bit, you
Does.
know. And we don't have the same outlook entirely as we did 20, 30 years ago. We may not be completely different, may hold many of the same core values, you know, but we've still had to adjust how we interact with the world. And I think that was part of what made Noel Clarke vulnerable. You know, as well as his resentments because he was a working class lad made good, which never goes down well in a classist society like Britain. I can assure you of that. You know, so he had plenty of people who had reasons to want to pitch him off the pedestal that he found himself on through hard work and talent. Good grief, Lonnie! Hard work and talent succeeding. We can't have that in the modern world.
Can't have that, and certainly can't have someone that is just one minority class.
We've got Darren Bradley's popped in. Darren, I would love to take any questions that you might have because I want to make sure that cover as many points of view as possible. So don't be shy there. Type them away, and we'll be sure to cover them. Right, let's get back to where we'd got to. So, I mean, I could summarise the other accusations, but to be honest, I wouldn't particularly waste your time with them. Apart from perhaps you'd look at the anonymous Doctor Who accuser. So if we come up above the Lisa Graham section, above the BBC section, above the John Barrowman section.
Oh boy!
Yeah. Stop. Like Jenna. So I'm not going to cover these. People could read about them. They're just, you know, just low quality allegations basically. Anonymous Doctor Who actor. Right now, that's it. Stop. This will make your eyebrows raise because I know what your eyebrows are like. I'm predicting I can make your eyebrows raise. Right. Direct quote from The Guardian. And this is all of it. This is the entire of this allegation. Okay. A Doctor Who actor who asked to remain anonymous has told The Guardian she was also sexually harassed by Clarke in the early seasons of the show. He made advances on me, she said, regularly asking me if I wanted a piece of his dark chocolate. When she rejected his advances, the actor said, Clarke badmouthed her to people in the industry. Clarke denied this allegation. His lawyers said this and other accusations, which they said were vague, unsupported by any objective evidence, lacking in specificity or coming from anonymised sources, made it difficult for him to provide a response. They said he has never sought to coerce, encourage, or pressurize any individual into non-consensual sexual activities and strongly rejects any suggestion he's been sexually inappropriate. Okay. What do you make of that?
Stuff and people and what? A Doctor Who actor. Okay, so that could be any one of 150 guest stars.
Yes. Well, any
including
woman who any woman who had a speaking role in any episode of the show that Noel Clarke's been in, I think that would be a fair criteria because it's probably not an extra. So assuming it's a speaking part, but yeah, that's any woman in the first 2 seasons of Doctor Who, basically.
So, and he's an unknown guest star. He's an unknown guest star at this point.
Yeah, he's semi-series regular.
Yeah, semi.
He's not even in every episode, you know. Even in series 1, he's not in every episode. So semi-regular.
And apart from Doctor Who, he's an unknown. He's a nobody.
Basically, yes.
And he's taken a shot like that. Well, I do know the entertainment industry works on a different set of rules than working stiffs like us. So, all right. So maybe he did say, "Hey, you're hot. Hey, you want a piece of this?" And she says, "No." And then he says, that mean old chick, she said no to me.
Well, I mean, the way it's written is suggesting that he kept on doing it. He made advances on me regularly, asking me.
He would
So
become a
that suggests
joke.
he'd done it more than once. Look, it's so vague, right? It's totally he said, she said. There's no context. There's no date. There's no time. There's no place. There's nothing to tie this down to anything that could realistically say it actually happened. And
Did, did she
is
raise it to her agent? Did she raise it to the
apparently not.
director?
Apparently not. But apparently she said no, and Clarke still went around bad mouthing her, but she didn't say nothing about it to no one or do nothing.
Well, if this sort of thing got the attention of the assistant director, he would have been slapped down. BBC is pretty strong on that, or so they claim. But beyond that, I think was this claim only appears in The Guardian, so this is years after he was on set.
Well, I mean, it could be anything from 11 to 15 years. No, 11 to 16 years.
And someone still cares?
Wow. They care because there was an article in The Guardian a week before, I mean, this looks like I phoned this in 5 minutes on a lunch break, doesn't it?
That's exactly what it looks like.
I mean, and there's no attempt to take anything alleged here, any inquiries further, and there's no information that would enable you to do that.
You can stand this up by just showing a photograph of the letter from the attorney saying, this is bollocks.
There's more words in the "this is bollocks" part than the actual accusation on this one. It's so slim. It's 4 lines. I can't think there's much less ever been written to become an allegation. We've got a little comment from Darren. Curious to see some interest today from parties, seemingly from agencies involved in the entertainment industry, taking interest in Noel's plight. Well, we did come close to talking about that earlier, but quite right, Darren. There are some interesting people starting to pay attention. And Cam's just replied again. Yeah, that's exactly. We're talking about power. At the time, he had no power. Yeah, because Noel Clarke was nobody. Hey, if he'd have behaved like this, he would have been completely demolished. Actually, there's another part of the article where I talk about the BBC reaction, so maybe we should go there next. That would be something else that's good to look to. But let's just come down on it a little bit more, please, Lonnie.
He would have been recast by the plastic trash can.
Well, it's just preposterous. It's just absolutely preposterous. I mean, maybe Noel was a really cheeky risk tappy who took risks, but the idea that there'd be nothing to substantiate that. So what have I put here? The accusation itself is meaningless, about much more to support it. Times, dates, places, there's a credibility dilemma here with all these allegations sounding so similar. Are they evidence of a persistent pattern building up an overview of Noel Clarke's bad behaviour? Or are they relatively easy claims, all drawing from similar scripts to say things that are superficially bad, but without the hard details or vigorous actions really needed to back them up? Because again, anonymous Doctor Who actor did not go to police. With the anonymous Doctor Who actor, the one question that might seem worthwhile is, what is their identity? And I did attempt to solve that question, but I decided that, unlike revealing 2 anonymous accusers from the original Guardian feature in my last article, there isn't any hard evidence about who it might be. But none of the possibilities, which of course are a limited pool, have said anything publicly. It would be irresponsible for me to throw unproven accusations around. If the person who spoke to the Guardian wants their account to be taken more seriously, given their failure to go to police, that would now be on them to give it more credibility. As it stands, and having looked at so many accusations against Noel, who would condemn anyone just on the back of a claim like this? No names, no times, no dates, nothing was verified, no sign of any attempt to verify, just the accusation and Siren Kale and Lucy Osborne asking us to believe. Because, of course, it's the same writers as the last article.
Yeah.
But this then is where the point I want to make here. If anonymous Doctor Who accusers are okay, what about anonymous Doctor Who defenders? In an article published 30th of May 2021, which is about 3 weeks after this one that we're covering, the Daily Mail publishes these somewhat buried paragraphs. An actress friend of Noel Clarke told Mail Online earlier today that the 20 women accusing him of being a sexual predator are pursuing a racist witch hunt, as the actor was sacked by Sky, suspended by BAFTA, and criticised by a co-star who backs his alleged victims. The actress, who asked not to be named, said 45-year-old actor, writer, and director's fall from grace is because no one likes it when a man of colour gets to the top. That was one of the bona fide Doctor Who co-stars. That's what they said about Noel. And I do know who said it, but I'm not going to say who it was because I don't want to set a fandom fire off over it. But I can say it is not Sophia Miles, it's somebody else. Because Sophia Miles has said similar things, but she feels that what happened to Noel has an element of racism and prejudice, because it's class prejudice as well, because he's working class. But, you know, I also point out that the Daily Mail changes its online articles within the first couple of days. It normally starts them off with a dramatic headline and then dials it back, and it puts in other content that pads things out. So these two paragraphs would have been sort of top of the article, but we ended up buried in the middle of it. And the original URL for it was "It's racist witch hunt. Actress friend Noel Clarke claims he's unfairly vilified." But it doesn't say that today. But I do link the article, so there is that snippet there. And yet there have been anonymous Doctor Who defenders of Noel, and I think that's well worth highlighting. As I say here at the bottom of this section, does RTD believe what's been said about Noel in the press, or does he really know better? Everything suggests RTD has no reason to think anything bad of Noel based on all his time working on Doctor Who, that's for sure. A fascinating question for times to come with RTD taking over showrunning Doctor Who again. Should Doctor Who fans hashtag justice for Mickey Smith as well? And we're gonna. I'm not gonna go into the Barrowman stuff. How long have we been on here? Yeah, we've been on an hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
Let's. I want to look at the BBC's responses because I think that's also really worth getting into. But so just at the bottom of this part on John Barrowman, keep going.
Keep going.
I write a lot.
You do write a lot.
Aren't his staunch defence, no issues with Noel, John gets told of. So before I get into that, what do you make of anonymous Doctor Who defenders, Lonnie? You know, there have been people who've spoken up for Noel anonymously as well. I mean,
I think that's as valid a statement as any other. I mean, it holds just as much water as all the other reporting.
Well, I can say this about this person. As I said, it's not Sophia Miles. And I can also say that that person defending Noel in that way appeared in most of the episodes of Doctor Who that Noel was in.
Okay. So
this is not somebody insignificant. It's somebody who worked with him a lot. Okay. I can't say anymore.
So knowing that this is a real person then, and knowing that it's somebody you can reach out and put your hands on, or at least phone call, that's different. I would be inclined to place a lot of weight and merit on their statement. If Noel was being a bad boy on set, I believe that person would have come to a certain knowledge that he was doing it.
Well, and also, if you're dealing with anonymous, an anonymous accusation is presented without evidence. If you present a claim without evidence, it can be dismissed without evidence. And if someone's got a problem with an anonymous Doctor Who defender, or in the case of what I put in this article, an anonymous source, okay, fine. You don't like anonymous? That's 15 Guardian accusations you just thrown out a window. So you can have it one way or you can have it the other. But either way, it's not great from your point of view, because there are people standing up for Noel, and there is another side to this. Okay, so let's talk about BBC. At the same time as the 66 Ramblers video had engulfed John Barrowman in his own media storm, sparked by the press going after Noel Clarke, the BBC had to get their ducks in a row and make a credible response as the Guardian went to press.
And 66 Ramblers is the Twitter user that published the video.
The John Barrowman, Noel Clarke talking about John Barrowman video got online because of 66 Ramblers. Yes, that's what I show in the John Barrowman section, but we won't detail that today, I don't think. At the time, the three people who would have been directly involved in any problems or complaints with either Noel Clarke or John Barrowman are Russell T Davies, RTD, showrunner, Julie Gardner, executive producer, and Phil Collinson, producer. When addressing this core team, The Guardian also talks about a musical tribute sketch performed to mark the end of Russell T Davies and Julie Gardner's time running the show that mentioned John Barrowman misbehaving. This is the video verified with video of Noel talking in Chicago. The sketch is performed by David Tennant and Catherine Tate, who of course were also moving on and leaving the show, as well as John Barrowman, and is genuinely amusing. Have you seen the Ballad of Russell and Julie, Lonnie? I mean, unfortunately, it's 6 minutes long, so it's quite long. But if you play it, it's a comedy. It's a musical comedy sketch routine, basically pastiching Russell and Julie's time running the show.
How long is it?
It's about 6 minutes. Give it a go if you want to have a look at it. Let's have a look at it now.
Okay.
So this was around 2010. Basically, it's the Leaving Do. And this was also, I think, on the End of Time DVD set in the extras. So this has been on BBC DVD for 11 years. I mean, it wasn't exactly hidden at the time. So yeah, hit play on it.
Russell sat one night. A marble. Julie's eyes were all ablaze as Russell tried to shun her gaze.
Oh man!
He knew the score. It seemed more manic than before. Russell cringed in fear and dread as Julie pulled him near and said,
"Let's do it. Let's do it. I had a really good idea. We'll revamp, make more campus sci-fi show from yesteryear. I've had banter with Tramper. Your word will be held in the Ming Mong mantra. Let's do it. Let's do it tonight."
But he said, "I can't do it. I can't do it." Embarrassed, I've watched the show since I was 3. Don't choose me, don't use me. My mother sent a note to say you must excuse me. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Can't do it tonight.
Let's do it. Make a brand new Doctor Who. With Doctor Who, Vision is a sidekick and an all-Welsh crew. It's not silly to ask Billy. We're filming everybody from here to Philly. Let's do it. Let's do it tonight.
Then he said, "I can't do it. I can't do it."
Well, anyway, we've made the point. So people can watch that. It's linked in the article. People can watch that. It is.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is really funny. But yes, it has a line in it about John Barrowman showing his willy. sung by John Barrowman, laughing about it, giving a big wink to camera. You know, so it kind of was difficult at that point to deny that this behaviour had gone on. So that's why this was then became evidence. Can we go back to my article? We'll carry on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth a diversion because that is jolly amusing.
Well, why
To
are we
say
not
the least.
going back to the article? Hold on a second. Let me.
The
Try
back button is a marvelous thing.
It's an evil thing sometimes too. So if I go over here,
It's got its
push
downside.
that button, and then I push that button, and what happened? Just are we stuck? Why are we stuck?
Might have been. You might have too many tabs open, Lonnie.
It could happen that way.
It could happen. But that's all right. I've got it here. I can read out to you anyway. So you've got, you know, the Guardian had that video basically to go, look, you can't say nothing happened because we've got this video. We'll be making a joke about it. Okay. So Julie Gardner said, Gardner confirmed that she'd received a complaint around 2008 about Barrowman's conduct on the set of Torchwood. I met with John and reprimanded him, Gardner said, adding she'd also spoke to other executive producers, Barrowman's agent and the head of BBC Drama Commissioning to make it clear to both John and his agent that behaviour of his kind would not be tolerated. To my knowledge, John's inappropriate behaviour stopped thereafter. She added, so you've got it in black and white there. This was an issue. John Barrowman was told off about it. It did go on his record. Everybody was told about it. His agent was told about it. The head of BBC commissioning was told about it. It was a proper black mark on his report, and he didn't do it again. So, you know, that's Julie Gardner on John Barrowman. Julie Gardner then goes on to say, she told The Guardian she was not aware of any inappropriate behaviour by Clarke. I'm saddened and shocked by the accusations raised. If I'd known of them, there would have been prompt action taken. I'm grateful that people are coming forward to speak up and support them wholeheartedly. But the point is, she was not aware of any inappropriate behaviour by Clarke. Then there's Russell T. Davis, who's also quoted on the matter. Russell T. Davis said he never saw Barrowman expose himself and was unaware of any complaints about Clarke's behaviour towards female co-stars on set, and had never heard of or witnessed inappropriate behaviour by the actor. Had he received a complaint, Davis said he would have acted immediately. So that's Julie Gardner, that's Russell T. Davis. They're both saying the same thing. They're not aware of any problems with Noel during any of the time he worked on Doctor Who, regardless of his accusations coming forward now.
I'm inclined to believe that as much documentation as goes around, I cannot believe that the BBC would take a position like that and it not to be true.
And why would they document against John Barrowman but not document against Noel Clarke if there was any issues with Noel Clarke? Of course it would be documented.
Yeah.
You know, so the fact is he didn't put a foot wrong. Now there is one more thing interesting in this, Lonnie, which is that we've heard from Julie Gardner, we've heard from Russell T. Davies, but we've not heard from Phil Collinson.
That is a point.
So why has the Guardian not approached Phil Collinson to comment?
Maybe he's not playing nice with him.
Or, I mean, look, let's break it down logically. If they approached him for a comment and he said no comment, the Guardian would report no comment.
He said no comment.
If they approached him for a comment and he gave a bad comment, like, oh, that Noel, I knew he was dodgy all along. You know, if he had said something like that, that would have gone into print.
I think just about.
So we've got, if he'd have said no comment, that would have gone into print. If he'd have said a comment that was useful to them, that would have gone into print. The other option, he left with two options there. They either asked him for a quote, he gave him a positive quote, and he didn't use it, or they never asked him for a quote at all. Because if he had said no comment or given a negative quote, both would have been in the paper.
Yes.
I mean, does that logic hold up for you?
Yeah. Is it possible he just simply didn't answer?
Well,
They would have said so.
That would have been declined to comment before we went to print.
Yeah.
Whereas a comment, no comment, is different than a failing to comment. But they would still comment on a failure to comment if they'd approached him
They would.
to comment. I'm saying comment a lot in these sentences, but I mean, I'm just trying to lay this out. So what I reckon, I think the most likely thing here is that they did ask Phil Collinson to comment. He really didn't have anything to say because he had no reason to have any problem with Noel, and they didn't use what he said to them. Because if the Guardian had had all three people responsible for staff conduct on the production of Doctor Who, all saying we've got no problem with anything that happened with Noel while he worked with us, that's not very good for the credibility of their accusers.
I think I agree.
So it's an absence that stood out. And I mean, I don't have any particular connections with Phil Collinson or anything, but there probably are some fans out there that he has interacted with over the years, that he might chit chat with. And if anyone's in a position to just pop that question to Phil Collinson in a friendly way, because it's not about interrogating him, we'd just like to know: did the Guardian approach him for comment last year, and did he give one? Because if they ignored what he said because it was in Noel's favour, I think that's significant, and fandom deserves to know that.
I think so too. Clearly, the absence leads us to think that whatever he gave them, they did not want to share, and they didn't want to. They didn't want to share what was provided.
Well, I mean, but this is the BBC's response is to say, we've never had a problem with Noel Clarke while he's been working on any of our productions, and John Barrowman was a bad boy, and we gave him a slap. That's the BBC's response, and it's pretty robust. Now, what's Cam saying here? John Barrowman went from Who part-timer to the star of Torchwood. Barrowman made what he thought was a joke to break the tension and was reprimanded, but they covered for Clarke? Yeah. No, they wouldn't have covered for Noel Clarke. If he'd have misbehaved at all, he'd have been out on his ear. There's always another Mickey Smith. You could do anything on a time travel show. So I just don't buy it. And it's the same with all these Noel badmouth me on set things that people say. I mean, where are the witnesses for Noel badmouthing other people? But the Guardian hasn't produced any. Not for any of its allegations that he's apparently a badmouther. There's nobody backing that up. That stands out. So
when someone badmouths you, there's usually a sentence.
But Lonnie, if you go back to that damn book that we talked about, Destroy a Man Now,
you don't need this.
In the section about leveraging media, it makes the point that you don't necessarily want your accusations to be the most dreadful sounding things. As long as they sound bad, they don't have to actually be accusing somebody of serious crimes. In innuendo and inference are just as damaging. To people's professional reputation, and it's a whole bunch of influence. Certainly did for Noel Clarke pretty quickly and effectively. Despite the fact that the more serious accusations that you'd expect to see from a real sexual predator was simply not there. Like when Harvey Weinstein got nicked, the charges were obvious. It was started with the R word right from the top, because that's what he did.
Yes.
Well, it is what it is. At this point, having questioned and investigated every single one of his accusations in the Guardian, I'm not going to pretend I can believe in it, because as it currently stands, I can't. It's just too wild, too unsubstantiated, too unproven. And the people who've made these accusations just haven't behaved in a way which would lead to them being treated as credible accusers. So we are where we are at, and I can't change what the objective view of the facts is. and I think we've pretty much done. We've pretty much covered it. I mean, it is what it looks like.
It is. I have one thing to do before we ring it in. Let's see what does Cam say here. Exactly,
Where
John.
are the people he said these things to? Well, you know, can't see them, and not quoted in the Guardian.
Yeah. Let me grab something here. Okay, let's go over to this screen. Maybe. There we go. I want to go here. Okay, so we have got at least some positive Twitter activity.
Oh, absolutely.
People are, and this is just a quick morning breeze through Twitter that that I managed to dig up. John Michael Fink, in response to your article, at Noel's Zone, Noel Clarke is innocent. People should leave him alone.
Yeah, it's a good. Well, it's how a lot of people are feeling.
Yeah. Anita Lewin, good evening. Just seen this. This is in response to Noel's stream with you over the weekend. Still not quite got to grips with Twitter, but just want to tell you that you will get back on the top because they can never keep a good guy down. Let's see. Keep pushing and staying relevant. Your story should be moving. Oh, now I remember. This is in response to Noel's tweet. That
He had a good writing day because he wrote 15 pages on Sunday, which is a very good writing day. Because as you know, a page of script equates to about a minute of screen time.
Oh,
so if you're banging out 15 pages of script, that's 15 pages of material. That's a good rate of progress. Doesn't mean it's good writing, of course. You've probably got to rewrite it, but that's screenwriting for you. It's a sod. But you know, I always think the best thing, if you're writing something, you're on the right path. You know, writing something is always better than writing nothing.
Calling all astronauts. They are a screech band. They said
this one stood out because this one is a blue check.
Yes, and
quite a big one as well. 80,000 or so, was it, or something like that? It's a big number of followers.
And they gave me a copy of their single, and I'm not a screech person, but they shared a preview of their single with me.
Oh, spot on, good lads.
Hope to see you back on the screen soon. So there's more people that are saying good things to Noel. And lastly, Raymond Edwards pipes up to say, good to see you, Noel. Keep fighting. Don't let them get you. You are a fine actor. And these are all things that have come up, I think, in response to what you have done with the piece that you brought to our attention.
Well, you know, I would rather say that, you know, we're definitely part of the effect, and we're giving a strong fan backbone, which hasn't been there before, and I think that's very important. But I also think that I don't want to take credit that maybe isn't due, because Noel's got lots of support. There are lots of people who like him. There are lots of people who love the stuff he made, especially the fans of Bulletproof. They're desperately heartbroken that there isn't a series 4 because of this. It's a top sky drama, you know. I mean, really having people chomping for it. A huge success in the UK, that series. You know, so but yeah, everything is all part of one big holistic effort, you know. And I'm not the only person who's been having doubts about this and felt that more should be done. And you know, but I'm just the bloke who wrote a couple of articles, you know, because I just happened to have the ability to do it, and I did it. You know, so I don't give myself over much credit for that. It's Noel's earning his own path to redemption, I believe.
I think that's true also. Could be possible that new people are being drawn to join Twitter as pound JFNC.
It means Justice for Noel Clarke. That's the abbreviation.
Gotcha.
Hashtag JFNC gets attention. Yeah, absolutely, Darren. I mean, we're pulling people to Twitter to come and check out what's being said. Yeah. And if you want to find out what a blue check mark is saying, you come to blue check mark land to find out, don't you? So, I think Noel on Facebook as well.
Sorry, Elon Musk. The reason that the numbers are improving for Twitter is Justice for Noel C.
Well, okay. Can we have some bots on our side, please? Send us spare bots. No, I don't mean that. Organic is better, of course it is. Real campaigns win. But yes,
there are plenty of people still out there hating on the guy. So we've got to the fans that want to make themselves known. Send some encouraging words to Noel C. and to Noel Clarke. Let him know and use the hashtag Justice for Noel Clarke so that we all can share in the good words that you're sharing.
Search that hashtag and see all the great content which already been put out there, because the Justice for Noel C Twitter account is making great content every day. As we said, we might not get the Guardian or some of these other newspapers actually chomping on the bait just yet, but they will. And you just can't go wrong. Go there, retweet, share, like. All of that content is good content. And as for Doctor Who fans listening to this, what I would most like you to do is take the link to the WordPress article and go and make fresh posts on all of those little secret forums you're all part of over on Facebook and other places. All those places you have to pass a loyalty test to get into or whatever. Just go get this link into the crooks and crevices of Doctor Who fandom, and let's make sure that fandom has an honest conversation about what it sees its responsibilities as, and how it's going to react as the information regarding Noel Clarke keeps shifting Noel's way, which is only going to do more and more in the future. I'm quite sure of that. Unless these accusers are going to get off their asses and start to bite back, which I personally don't think that's likely, that they're going to want to expose themselves to that public risk of saying anything else. But hey, I could be wrong about that. We'll see. But the situation's only going one way now, and it's the call for justice being heard.
And if there are any accusers who want to bring forth something that is not hearsay, I want to put them on a live stream and I want to talk to them. I want to have you on here and all of us. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. If it's there,
bring such a way to do it, then yeah. I mean, the platform's there, the microphone's there, and I know other live streamers would say the same. That they want to challenge this. They'll challenge this both ways if the opportunity was there. But at the moment, we're looking at this and going, "Oi!" Now, is there anything else that you feel that we should have covered, or that you'd like to ask, or that you'd like to bring out a bit more, Lonnie, before we wind up?
Let's see.
We've got 2 hours here.
To finish on the previous point, I understand police might say, keep your mouth shut. Somebody might say, keep your mouth shut. Give us the case ID. Just give us a case ID. Now, on everything else, I think we have been through the current article thoroughly. I think we have represented the previous information pretty thoroughly. Anything that people who watch this later, and there will be at least 40 people tonight watch this whole video, and hopefully more. Let's encourage them to go to the description and look at the links that are there, And be sure and follow Justice for Noel C on Twitter. Follow at John the White 1 on Twitter. And you can you can send messages to me or John on Twitter. I am at Lonnie Webb. And on YouTube, I am on comics. Is there anything that I have missed, John? I think we have thoroughly covered this. I mean,
Well, there's the thing with this topic. There is always more to talk about, but I mean, so what makes a reasonable package? I think we've done pretty well
I think
tonight.
we've done
So
pretty
I'm
good.
happy with where we're at. And honestly, after all of these live streams I've done, I'm reaching a point where I'm really talked out. The work is there. It's impressing people. It's impressing everybody who gives it a fair shot. So I can only suggest that you do the same. Also thinking in a couple of weeks, Lonnie, maybe I'll come back and do that talk about Brexit we discussed.
I would like to do that. I would like to have also a conversation more on your perspective of those lefties in protests.
Yeah, sure, we can do all of it. I'm quite happy to come and talk
I
to
think
you
we
about
could
other
have
things
some
as
great
well.
videos.
It's not a problem at all. I'd be more than happy to. And I just want to thank everybody for the kindness of their attention tonight, or whenever you're catching up with this. And hopefully the information does really speak for itself.
Thank you, Darren, and Cam, and everyone who comes in. Let's see, we did great work. Can't see, it's too small. There we go.
Yeah, very kind, Cam.
Of course. Glad to do it. Let's see.
As long as it makes you more informed, Cam, that was the whole point of doing it. So as a writer, I'm fulfilled and happy, as could be, because this has been very successful from the point of view of being a writer. It's really delivered for me on doing something that feels worthwhile and has helped people, not least Noel Clarke. So you're very kind, and thank you. And thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, everybody who watches this video. My review of Old Solaris is it hasn't rendered successfully yet, so I'm going to have to re-render that tonight. Maybe everybody will get that about the time that this one.
Did you watch it in the Russian with subtitles, or was it?
did.
Or was it? Yes, I think always the best way with foreign language films, because you get the emotion of the performances much better. It's worth it. Sticking with subtitles,
especially of this one. Okay. Podcast of the Lotus Eaters may be interested in picking this up.
Yeah, that's a particular British podcast. I know who Dan is talking about. I would have to say it's generally a right-wing podcast on social issues. And yes, if they do pick this up, then it will go large. But I think if that sort of thing happens organically, that's fine by me. I haven't reached out to them as such, because I think the problem is when a particular outlet is particularly polarized politically, I wouldn't want to presume to connect Noel Clarke to that myself. I think if Noel reaches out to particular people to talk to, I'd rather follow his lead on that, because as I say, I don't want to make him new problems. And unfortunately, there are outlets like the Lotus Eaters that would give Noel a very sympathetic ear. But it's a consequence of the culture war. But it's right-wing outlets which are more likely to be willing to challenge cancel culture.
Yeah.
I mean, the left only screams about it whenever one to get caught up in it, and when they do scream, they really scream like you wouldn't believe. Silence of the Lambs kind of screaming. But oh no, we've been caught up in the consequences of our own actions.
Well, that might get him more consumers, though.
Well, yeah, but I'm a bit cautious about the moves that I make or that I suggest Justice for Noel Clarke makes. But I think that interest from most people will come, because this is a big story.
Yeah.
It's much bigger than Doctor Who fandom.
So the the Solaris movie in its original form, you can put all of the dialogue and action in a 30-minute episode of Big Bang Theory. It's a 3-hour movie, and the character of time is crucial to that movie. If you don't,
I'd have to agree.
yeah,
I'd have to agree. But it's back in the days when science fiction was long, significant pauses. You know, but
and
Solaris is a strange story anyway. It's a bit of a mystical story.
you come away from it, you just keep thinking about it. Weeks later, it comes up again.
I tell you what, Lonnie, I don't do this very often, but I will give a big plug to a program that I've just finished watching, which I was very impressed by, which I feel blows Amazon Lord of the Rings and House of the Dragon away. Because I've got a controversial opinion here. Neither of those shows are actually all that good. It's just for House of the Dragon is a more competently made production. So it's not suffering from shooting itself in the head with incompetence.
It is certainly far less bad.
It's still a story out of George R. R. Martin's waste bin, from his appendices, from a backstory of a backstory to Game of Thrones. And I question whether it can really be more than a sort of courtroom drama show. Because that's really what is being adapted is these notes of these of the drama within the Targaryen family before the Mad King got his head cut off, or whatever actually happened, you know. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I know it's like 170 years before, but yes, it's much better television, and Matt Smith's performance is great. But is House of the Dragon itself actually a good television show? I think it's okay. But compared to the utter, no, I can't say any words but follow that. It wouldn't be very rude. But
I watched episode 3 last night.
Yeah, compared to what Amazon has said.
Amazon 3 is Lord of the Rings. Or episode 3 is Lord of the Rings compared to what?
This isn't about the current thing, which is what it is. It's the current thing. It's the dynamic between the current thing. I've looked at another series that was made 3 years ago, which blows them both away.
3 years?
And that series is The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, and it's on Netflix.
Really? I thought that it got...
It's a 10-part series. Yes, it did get cancelled. It didn't get a series 2. And there's certainly room there for a series 2 to connect it up to the start of the Dark Crystal movie, which was made in 1982. But the series itself, the characters are all really you really invest in them. They're all really different. You know, they got real drama between them for real dramatic reasons. You know, and real character development for all the characters. And a fantasy setting which is unique, which doesn't compromise itself in any way, and which, you know, believes in itself and takes itself seriously, and has a really interesting story to tell. You know, and you know, it really moved me. I mean, I had tears in my eyes several times watching that series. In a way in which House of the Dragon, even if I say that's so much better than what Amazon's churned out, House of the Dragon isn't going to move me in that way.
It's going to be forgettable.
Yeah, but with Dark Crystal, and yeah, okay. I mean, it's puppets. You know, it's Jim Henson. It's puppets. You know, and I suppose that's always going to damage its credibility with some people. But for me, you know, as someone who loves story and really well told, really good quality storytelling, with excellence in character and excellence in production values, because it really brings the world of Tra to life in a much better way than they could do back in 1982. And the use of special effects just makes it so exciting and so interesting. You know, that series, total gem. You know, and yeah, absolutely there are people saying that Netflix are absolute arseholes cancelling it. Well, that's Netflix for you. You know, but if you want, I mean, I would suggest that, you know, that is a classic. It's been totally overlooked. It's much unloved. You know, it didn't find the audience it deserved. But I would suggest to any budding podcaster or YouTuber, if they wanted to do a series comparing Dark Crystal Age of Resistance to the current fantasy showings of 2022, then they would find that Dark Crystal comes out so far on top.
I will give it a look.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I've just been spending some of my time on, is checking that out. So I thoroughly recommend it. And yeah, Darren's right. I love the Dark Crystal. I own the art of book by Brian Frood. What an artist! What an artist! And it still very much comes across as the world that Brian Frood envisaged, Darren. So I don't know if you've seen that series, but I'd recommend it to you too. And with that, my cup of tea is empty, which is just unacceptable. So I'm afraid this conversation is going to have to come to an end.
Very good. I'm going to wrap things up, and thank you everybody for stopping by today and watching later. At John the White 1 and at Justice for Noel C on Twitter.
That's the one. Justice for Noel C. That's the one.
Hashtag Justice for Noel Clarke. And I am Lonnie Webb, at Lonnie Webb on comics. You can find us really, you can find us all over the place. We're doing damage on other YouTube streams as much as possible. Please share with other people this stream, as well as the other streams that have dealt with this topic. Make people aware that there is a question of Noel Clarke's presumed guilt, and we would like to get some fact checkers of what we have brought to the surface in the media.
Absolutely. It's the media needs to account for the mess they made.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's wrap it up, and I will talk to you all when I can.
Goodbye, everybody.